Welcome everyone to this session. It's actually amazing that we're having a session like this because I feel like AI and AI agents are coming to stay. And I think one of the things I was thinking about is how can we sensitize ourselves to understand how these AI agents work and maybe start making use of them in our daily work that we do with our clients. And at the end of the day, being able to, increase productivity with, all of the, I would say, topics or subjects we have to do in our clients' place. All right. This session basically will be focusing on how do we actually maximize the use of Copilot agents in development. And as a demo for this particular session, we would actually see a sample on how we can build an application from scratch just by making use of the Copilot AI agent. All right. Firstly, I think one of the things we have to understand is what really is the Copilot agent all about, right? What is the idea behind that? And I think, for us to be able to understand the idea behind the Copilot agent, we need to first understand what does it do, right? What are the capabilities of the Copilot AI agent? And I think right now, to the best of my knowledge, I feel like there's no boundary to how much this thing can do. I even feel the developers themselves don't yet understand the boundary of how much it can do because every day I see people doing different things with this, right? And just to give a brief idea into some of the function it does, it's basically like a collaborator. I mean, if you connect this, the Copilot agent mode, if you connect it to your VS Code, you basically see it most of the time trying to scan your files, just generally understand what you're trying to build. And in the process of scanning your file, it's thinking at the same time, giving you suggestions on how best you can improve your coding style. Or maybe in case you're doing some coding work and then it sees some error in it, it immediately gives you ideas of maybe what are the best ways you can implement exactly the same type of code, right? So I would initially, or I would say, I would call it a collaborator that kind of assist you in your development journey. I would also call it a multi-step coding agent, right? Because while it's giving you this idea, it already has like lots more ideas to give you. And at the same time, it's not just giving you, if you allow it, it can implement its suggestions to you, right? So one, it's helping you, it's collaborating with you, thinking in the same process of how what you're trying to build. Now it also has the ability to then implement the suggestions it's given, right? And thirdly is the ease at which you can integrate it with your environment. I mean, all you just need to do is just to have an account in your GitHub. That's literally all you need to do and give it some permissions to be able to, go through your files. All right. So with all of this, I would say, or let me say, some of these duties I have aligned here. It gives you an idea what the Copilot agent mode is all about. And the interesting thing is, we don't know the boundary yet. We don't understand the boundary yet, but we can, in our various organization, try to create policies. You understand so that it doesn't go out of hand, right? To execute stuff. So we can individually set out those policies to understand or to give it some clear definition on what it should do. All right, we'll be proceeding. How does this agent work, right? It's amazing because I remember the first day I tried it out myself, and I remember talking to one of my colleagues, and I was like, "Adiola, have you seen this? Have you seen what this guy does?" And because I was amazed, right? Because it's the fact that it just quickly does some scanning, it analyzes all of the code work, and starts giving you 9 suggestions. In fact, it can predict your next step, right? It tells you what it thinks your next line of action should be.
But when you are doing that, sometimes doesn't it irritates you?
Yes. Well, yeah, it can be irritating when it becomes too much, but not when the ideas are really good. Yeah,
when you are typing or you have something in mind, you want, let's say very simple, you want to declare a variable with some data type and it just keep on showing you
so there is a way you can just escape or just sign out if you don't want that. I remember a colleague of mine was working with a whole code set of block, and she just signed out of the Copilot because she didn't want any interruption.
Yeah.
So if you know you are working with a piece of code that you don't like any suggestions, any interrupt, just quickly sign out and you're good, right? But if you know, I mean, you would probably work faster with his suggestions, then if he provides a suggestion to you you don't like, just click on the escape button and it goes back to normal, right? So first things first, how does this agent mode work? It starts with analyzing your code. It goes through and tries to understand what you want to achieve. I think that's the first step it does. The second step is that it then does what we call the command generation. So it can say, I see what you're trying to currently do. I predict that this is the next line of action you should take. And on your VS Code, you would automatically say it bring out the code block. Now, if that aligns with what you want to do, that's fine. You can press the tab button and already the code is completed, right? And if, for instance, in a situation like you mentioned, it doesn't align with what you want to do, you can just press the escape button and it clears off. Right. Now, the next thing is that it also does some kind of testing and I would say remediation activities. So you're building with the co-pilot agent in the agent mode, right? And some of the times you want to test if what I'm building is it actually giving that result I want. You can actually ask the agent to say, okay, create a test by itself, right? And run this test and let me validate if all of these suggestions you've given to me does really make sense, right? Is it, can it, or what's the word? Is it validated? Is it true? You understand? So this is, I would say, the flow it takes. One, it analyzes the code. It gives you recommendations, or let me say command generation. And the third one is the testing and the validation, in this case, remediation, in case there's an error. The beautiful thing about this is if in the process of validating, it experiences an error, what it does is that it tends to go on a loop. A loop in the sense that it takes the error, tries to analyze how to fix that error, provides the next set of code to resolve that error, right? And it automatically runs the code, of course, with your permission, right? And if that still doesn't resolve the issue, it keeps going. It keeps trying to resolve the issue until it gets to a point where it's finally resolved it. And then you can decide to say, okay, let's move forward. And if, for instance, it doesn't resolve the issue, you could actually put out another prompt and say, okay, leave this aspect alone and let's move to this other aspect. So this is how I would say the agent mode works. Now, on to the next one, interacting with the Copilot agent mode. Now, one of the very first things you need to do when interacting with the Copilot agent mode is one, you need to open your VS Code. I think that's a very important thing. And the reason why we suggested choose the insiders part of the code is at some of the versions people have installed on their systems don't carry the agent mode yet. And that's because I think at the time they downloaded it, the agent mode hasn't been incorporated. So you can do two things. It's either you download a fresh VS Code, automatically that comes with the agent mode, or you select the VS Code insiders, then you have access to the agent mode. Now, you can also navigate to the Copilot. It has various options which you can decide to choose. We'll be talking about that later on. Generally, between the edit, the ask, and then the agent mode. Now, to be also able to interact with the Copilot agent mode, I think one of the very, I would say, important thing is effective prompting. I think this can't be overemphasized because all of the work you're going to be able to achieve with this agent mode would depend on the prompts you provide. And that's why I would advise that when given prompts, it's always good to provide some form of context, right? Give it instructions on the boundaries it should take. You can say, okay, you give it some set of instructions and say, don't do any other thing after completing this. The idea is you're setting a boundary which the Copilot agent mode should work on. And I feel that is really, really important. As an example, I said here, create a weather dashboard that shows a 5-day forecast with icons, right? So if you see here, I'm already giving it an idea of what I want. One, I'm talking about a weather dashboard. I'm giving it a timeline, 5-day weather forecast. And I'm saying I want to see icons, right? So the first thing it probably do is one, try to create the dashboard, ensure the dashboard is within a 5-day range and shows me those icons I'm looking at. All right, we proceed now to the key capabilities of the agent mode. Now, like I said, to me personally, with the understanding I have, I feel like the capabilities are a lot more, but there are some key capabilities that we can talk about, right? And some of those key capabilities right now is building applications. You can actually create a complete application from scratch, like just with prompts from scratch. Um, you can also refactor, modernize your code. As maybe you have an existing application you could refactor it, make edits, suggestions on how to improve the code structure. You can also generate documentation. You know how sometimes when you're working with like a very big project, right? And you're like, man, to start sitting down and documenting all of the process can be a bit of some stress. And just imagine having a tool that can scan all through your code and generate the documentation on how that application works. I mean, I feel it's lovely, right? So another thing you can do, it can help you integrate libraries into your existing setup or your existing environment. And I mean, so far, these are the outlined key capabilities of the agent mode. But like I said, personally, I feel there's really no boundary to what this agent mode can do. And people are really exploring. A lot of people are like, trying to work things out to see what is the boundary to what I can do with this agent mode. Yeah, you asking.
I want to ask you, what is your experience building apps with tools like GitHub Copilot? Because my personal experience is that it's very good when you have maybe like a very specific function in mind and you don't want to waste the time on creating it, and you give instructions very specific about the inputs and the outputs that it takes, and then it does it quite well. But recently I was working on a repository that we created for Hackathon. Most of the code is GenAI, and there is great danger, at least that I see personally as a developer, which is that there is code that is bad and it looks bad, but there's code that is bad but it actually looks good, and like that can even be even more dangerous. These tools, I feel, tend to create a lot of code, like many files, very abstracted, using classes. It all looks very correct when you look at it superficially, but then it's a matter of like running it and to discover that there's a lot of things that don't work right. Some of them easier to spot. For example, maybe like an import that doesn't exist, like maybe it's like from Google.cloud import, whatever. I don't know, like tool, and like tool doesn't exist. Like there's like function tool and example tool, something like that, for example. But even like a bit deeper, like maybe like errors that are like harder to crack, and it happens because the wrong object is being passed into like a function or stuff like that. And I find that sometimes I even spend more time reviewing this insane amount of code produced by the GenAI than actually writing that myself. So I'm interested in your experience and how have you.
So the same way you're exploring is the same way I'm actually exploring. And you see, thanks to your point, that's why I say these things can't really work without humans, right? Um, as much as everyone says AI will take away people's jobs, I don't believe so, because what I believe is if you understand how to maximize its use, you become superhuman. But in its own sense, doing the actual work, these things, it may not see these things, but you know what it should be, especially from the experience you've gathered over the years. So that's where you come in. That's why you now need to define its boundaries and say, this is what I want to do. Don't do anything more, right? And then most of the time, you'll find out that or let me say, people who are using this to build apps from scratch are people who are probably, you are in a haste, you need something, you need to just have an output, right, that could just do the work. But if you really deploying or developing a really serious app, of course, you would have lots of phases like planning what you want to see, what kind of tools you want to use in developing the app, right? So, I mean, even if it may not be able to tell you all this, you can decide exactly what you want it to use. So, in terms of all of this you've mentioned, I mean, I feel like there are lots of still things to explore, things the agent itself needs to know. And that's why when you're working with a particular agent, you can actually train the agent. You can give it like, let me say, context on how you think as a person and the kind of application you want to deploy, what exactly you want to see in that application. So, yeah, I mean, it's interesting, I would say. I'm excited about what these things are about to do, what they can do, and what the future looks like with agents like this.
Mhm.
Awesome. All right, thank you for that. Let's proceed. Now, comparing Copilot agent modes, currently we have three modes, which is the edit mode, the ask mode, and then the agent mode. And in here, you can see the descriptions of each of these modes. For the edit mode, you're looking at quick edits, single and multiple files. For the ask mode, you're just maybe like a Q&A session. You're interacting and trying to get ideas on what the Copilot thinks about this particular topic. And then for the agent mode, which is what we are currently looking at now, it's the automating or autonomous multi-step workflows. Generally, for the agent mode, it's just giving the agent the ability to think and create stuff that you would like to see. All right, moving on. Customizing the agent mode for your needs. This is one of the things we just spoke about, and also this also relates to the question he asked earlier, right? Copilot itself doesn't have all the ideas you have, right? When you're building an application, it doesn't really see your mind to kind of think on the specifics you want, and that's why this comes in, the ability for you to customize to your needs, right? Basically, you can do this with the kind of instructions you pass to the agent, right? Those would really, really help in defining and giving it boundaries on what to do and what it can execute on your development work or your development environment. Also, another thing you can do in customizing is making use of MCP integrations, which basically you are connecting, specialized developer tools and creating workflows. I think this is also another interesting topic we would probably delve on in maybe a next session, making use of MCP servers and how can you integrate MCP servers in your workflows. Like I said, AI agent is here to do lots of wonders. And we'll probably in later sessions, we would see how to make use of MCP integrations. And the next one is the context specificity. So here you are providing a detailed requirement on what you want to see in your application. More like giving it boundaries on what exactly you want the agent to do. All right, we move on. What are practical examples you can do with the agent? One, creating an app from scratch, which is something we also want to take a look at here today. We're going to have like some demo to cover this. Yes, generally repository setup, scaffolding, coding and testing, and then documentation. So you could ask the agent to generate a comprehensive documentation on the app it has built. You could instruct the agent to, do some testing on, the code structure you've used. Also, you could, prompt the Copilot to create some initial project structure for you, defining the core competencies on or core components of your particular application. So these are interesting things you would see us do during the demo session. Best practices. Well, when it comes to best practices, we will take a look at very simple to use best practices when it comes to agents like this. One, you want to look at how basically reviewing before applying. I think that's the short form for it. But the idea is this: the co-pilot will always ask before it implements. Also, when it changes your files, right? When it changes your files, you would see the exact output on how your new file looks like. You can then say, oh, I don't like this change, reverse, go back to how it was, right? So the idea is what? Review before applying. Also, the ability for it to iterate rapidly, you need to be able to undo the capability quickly, right? If, for instance, it has probably gone a step further than what you would want it to do, just ask it to undo. There's a button there on the code block or on your VS Code that says just undo. I don't want this change, right? And the ability also to craft specific prompts, right? I think this is a very good skill for making use of the agent mode. We will see it come into play here because we outlined some specific prompts we would like to see the agents make use of.
One question, very quick.
Okay.
It could be a bit out of the scope, so if
Sure. I
it's
mean,
okay.
we're all here to learn, right?
Yeah.
So
I keep hearing about like the non-open source options like OpenAI Codex and Cloud Code, and I was wondering if you ever used it and if they offer any significant advantage compared with GitHub Copilot.
Okay, personally, I haven't used them. Like I said, I am also excited about these things. I am exploring myself and learning on the capabilities of these agents. But I mean, the overall goal for me is, even while doing all this learning, to sensitize my colleagues and let them know, hey guys, there's something new in town. And just generally, guys, let's all make use of this. If it enhances the way you work, fine. If it doesn't, you can turn it off. But for me, it's just generally letting my colleagues know there's a new guy in town, and that's the interesting thing about it.
I think for Copilot, the sheer ability to be able to just integrate it with your VS Code, it's there on your workspace. You can use it when you want, and not have to maybe go outside of VS Code to go and get answers and bring it in. So I think that's one major advantage it would always have over the other
Those other tools as well.
I actually thought all the coding assistants had a plugin on VS Code.
On VS Code, right?
But I mean, if they don't, I think they're missing on.
Exactly.
Microsoft again, so the integration is
True.
Seamless. So.
True, exactly. But I do know that some of these other agents possibly are already building plugins now, because personally, I've done the testing on Amazon Q. I've seen it, how it works, how it thinks, So I know that some of these other platforms are now building plugins to integrate to the VS Code, and some of the times they virtually do stuff while you're working. You understand? So, like I said, this is the future of agent mode. It's here to stay. And I remember during the build session where Satya was mentioning something like, at the end of the year, or in the year 2026, they are looking about 8 billion agents. People are going to be building, right? So imagine you looking at all of the agents you want to build, or having an idea how this works and already implementing them in building. I mean, the sky is the beginning, I would say. All right. The future of intelligent application development. So with these kind of tools coming into play, one of the things you would naturally realize is the accelerated innovation, right? And the expanding of possibilities. Earlier on when I started, I said, even to me, I feel like the capabilities of these tools have not been known. Like the entire capability have not been known. I feel like the boundaries are yet to be discovered, right? And what this does is it expands the possibilities of what can be done, right? So, I mean, this is the future we are looking into: accelerated innovation and what expanding possibilities. Yes, I think it's demo time. Yeah, let's see what this does. And yeah, all right. Okay. For the demo, I would be, let me bring up my VS Code. Okay. I need to come in here and probably make this. Did I do it? I think there's a way to do some escape on this. Okay. Yeah, I can pause this. I'm sure. Okay, good. I was wondering where the buttons went to. I will minimize this and probably push my browser here.
Okay. It was an extra screen.
Yeah, I added it as an extra scan. Yeah, okay. So let me make this. Okay, it's moving. Sometimes I'm looking for where the button is. Can anyone see my keypad?
I think it's because of that thing, the one you connect there.
Yeah, that's what is displaying it. That's what is making it an extension for me. All right. So to do this, I have a repo here, and in this repo, I have provided some, will I say, a storyline of what we want to achieve, right? And the idea here is just building a fitness app. And I think this is a scenario happening in an example school like the Medington High School. That is the example we're using. In this particular scenario, I used to call it physical education, but I don't know what is being called here in the teachers that do physical tracking activities.
We just say gym, and that we just call it gym.
Gym. Okay. All right. Okay. So here he has a couple of students. He's been taking, and he wanted to understand what would be the best way to track, their improvements and all of that. And then he thought about this particular application. In this particular scenario, I've outlined a couple of steps that I want GitHub Copilot to take, right? It's like me creating the context of the application it's going to build. Now, in this context, I'm telling it, okay, I want to build a Monafit tracker app that will include these functions, right? And I'm saying here, all of this should be in one application. I'm also providing a set of instructions to read, right? I'm providing a set of instructions to read, and I'm saying, generate instructions in this order, right? So it's going to try to create the front end and the back end for the application. It's going to create the directories. All of those things I want you to do, I put some story here in it. I'd also given it a reference on how I wanted to arrange the files, the directories, all of those things I wanted to do. So I've done all that in here in this file, right? Let me then bring up my VS Code where I have this in. Okay, so this.
So now,
Yeah.
I think so.
yeah, of a global.
Yeah, sorry. Let me bring up my VS Code. 1 minute.
Which load screen?
Huh?
That screen is very slow.
Yeah, it was just heavy.
Yeah,
Yeah,
we should drop that one.
I should drop that one.
Yeah, and you just use yours. It's not faster.
Okay, I think that'll be faster. Yeah, that's true. Okay, so maybe.
You don't have to remove it. You just have to share the screen instead of sharing that screen.
Oh, okay. Okay.
Just right.
Yeah, then let me bring this back
Yeah,
then.
sure. Remove that.
Okay, you can remove that. It's going to be connected. Okay.
Okay, so I'll just go to Teams and share my screen.
You can remove the dongle if you want.
You don't go, right?
Yeah.
And I'll share this one. Good. Okay.
Yeah.
Good.
Okay.
All right. So here's my VS Code. Let me minimize this. Good. And just like what I was saying earlier, these are all the instructions I've passed across to the Copilot agent mode, or these are the instructions I intend to pass across to the Copilot agent mode to help in creating this application, right? And then I'll be making use of, will I say, prompts to be able to do this, just telling it, reference this, execute, and we'll see how this works as we go. So let me open the Copilot agent mode. As you can see here, I'm making use of the agent 4.1, the GPT 4.1, and as we go on, I'll pass these instructions, and then we'll see the agents begin to work from there. All right, so let me close this. I'll need to open a terminal for me to see the work it's going to do, right? And I have like here where I have detailed all of those instructions. So I'm just going to copy the prompts and then we'll work from there. So the first prompt here is just telling Copilot agent, say, hey, Copilot, how can I create and publish a new Git branch called the Build Octofit app, right? And since I'm doing this in the agent mode, I'm asking it, and then of course it's going to tell me, would you like me to execute? So that's where I actually give it the permission to go ahead and execute. So that's the first one. I'm sending in that request. Of course, you can see the agent is already thinking, and then it's telling me, okay, this is how I can create the branch, and this is how I can go about, pushing my branch. So he's told me this. Let me know if you want me to run this command, and I can say yes, proceed. So I said proceed, and then you see it brings the prompt here, and then I just say continue. So then you can see it's trying to create the branch. You can see it's already switched to the branch, and then it's saying next run this command. And I'm like, okay, I want you to do that. So you can see right now it has done that. It has built the new branch, and it has pushed this branch to the remote repository. So now we are currently in the new branch. The next thing is to then give it the next prompt. And the next prompt generally is saying what we want to achieve in this next prompt is here we want to set up the directory structure of this application, right? So we are going to give it the prompt and say in the agent mode to start the creation of the application. And here is a sample prompt I've created for this. I've outlined the steps here, and generally I'm saying understand the story of creating this fitness application from the docs octofitstory.md file. So if you remember here in the code block, we have this story file. So I'm asking it to come here, understand the story, and then carry out some actions based on the story. So I'm saying here, create the initial directory structure for the Octofit tracker application. And this is the directory structure I want to see. Also, set up the backend Python virtual environment. And then based on this file, I want to see you install the required packages, right? So I'm just going to copy all of this, the prompt itself, and then paste it on the agent mode, and let's see it do its work.
Can you instruct the agents to read files from your repo?
Yeah, you can. So you can see there, it's actually trying to read. So if you see here, it's reading.
Oh, that's it.
It's reading the file in question, lines 1 to 50, and it reads the second one. And here it says, here is how we'll proceed. And then it begins to give a step-by-step instruction. Understanding the story is going to give these key features, which includes user registration, activity logging, team competitions, dashboard, gamification, secure authentication, and a mobile responsive design, right? And then it's going to create the initial directory structure, which is this. So if you look at right now, this is the Octofit tracker. You can see that there is really nothing here, but it's gone ahead to create the back end and the front end. And then the next part in the command was to create a virtual environment. It has outlined the code for us, and then we then ask it to proceed with creating the virtual environment. So it's working, it's doing its thing, yeah. And you can see here on the left side that it's already creating its virtual environment. And it has gone through the requirements.txt file for the virtual environment, and then it's asking, do we want it to activate the Python virtual environment and install the required backend packages from the requirement.txt file? And then I say continue, right? So now you can see it's just downloading all of these requirements in the virtual environment. So it's taking a look at the virtual environment file or the requirement.txt file and downloading all of the possible or all of the things that have been outlined in there. So you can see this is the requirement.txt file up here. It has all of these requirements. And that's what it has downloaded in the virtual environment. And it has also connected to the virtual environment here. So in here, you can see that right now we are in the virtual environment. Also, you can see it here. It says all requested steps are complete. It has gone through the story and the requirements and understood from the Octofit story.md file and the Mona High School Fitness Tracker MD file. It has created the directory structure, both the back end and the front end. Also, from the back end Python virtual environment, it has set up and also installed the various packages from the requirement.txt file. And now it's saying, would you like to proceed to do the next step, such as initializing the Django project in the back end? So now I've passed across some instructions. It has done those instructions. Now it's suggesting what the next step should be, right? So now I can then decide to say, okay, yes, let's go ahead with this. Or I can then give it specific prompts on the next line of action I want it to do. So we are going to take the next activity on the prompt list I have, which is to install the MongoDB, right? And if you look at the prompt here, I say based on the example outlined above, install the MongoDB, right? Make sure the command is complete. Don't proceed with the next activity until all these steps are completed. And what I'm trying to do by that instruction is I'm trying to give it a boundary, saying don't proceed until you finish the task I've asked you to do. All right, so I'm going to copy the prompt and I'm going to put it in here. And yeah, let's say the Copilot agent work. So right now it's trying to download the MongoDB in my virtual environment. So here you see it updating the homebrew. So you can see all of those actions happening in the background. So here it tells me MongoDB Community Edition 7.0 was installed, but there's a version conflict with an older MongoDB 6.0, which is already linked to the system. To complete the installation, make the version 7.0 active, you should run this. And then it's giving me the option which says, would you like me to run this command for you to finish the MongoDB setup? And I say, yes. So it's going to unlink the previous version and then try to link it up with the version 7.0. So now it says MongoDB 7.0 is now fully installed and active on my system. Would you like me to proceed with starting the MongoDB service or move on to the next step in your Octofit tracker setup? So now it's done with that. It's time for me to pass a new set of instructions. So I'll go on to pick the next line of activity here, which is verify MongoDB is running, right? So I would say here, based on the example in the file, start the MongoDB service, verify the service is running, and also give it the next instruction to say, don't proceed to the next activity until it's done with this. So now I copy the prompt and I paste it here on the agent and tell the agent to start the service. So you can see here, to be able to start the service, it's giving me the command and it's asking me, do I want to proceed? And I'm saying, yes, continue. So it's going to run the command and try to start the service, right? To also verify that the service is working, right? It's asking me to run this command, right? Check the status of the MongoDB service and verify it is running. I click on continue, and yes, I can see here. Let's see. I can see here it says MongoDB version 6 started. I see there's an error with version 7, right? I see there's an error with version 7. So it now says stop the old MongoDB 6 service, restart MongoDB 7, and verify its status. I'll click on continue, and then let's see what happens. So now you can see here that version 6 is now saying none, and version 7 is saying started. So here it then tells me MongoDB 7.0 is now started and running, and the old MongoDB 6.0 service has been stopped. You can now use the MongoDB for your Octofit tracker backend. Let me know when you're ready to proceed with the next step. So with this, I'll proceed to give the next set of prompts, which is generally to initialize and create the Octofit DB MongoDB database. Also, the Django project app, update the Django project, the app files, and populate the MongoDB database. So with that, I would just give it this prompt, right, which generally gives the necessary instructions I want it to carry out. So I would just copy this and paste it here. So now let's see it begin to do the work. Right, so you see it saying run this command, create the new project name this in the backend directory. So I'm going to continue. So you also take a look at this place. You see the files being generated here as well while we give it the prompts. Apply the initial Django migration for your new project, and I click on continue. and you can see it's done the migration. And here you see it saying start the Django development server for the Octofit Tracker project. So if I click on continue, it will start the application, right? So as you can see here, the application is already started, right? So if I go to this, let me go to my browser and let me click on this. So you can see that the application is already up and running. And this is just, let me say, I have not even finished all of the features I want to see in here, right? Now, if I want to proceed further and I want to say, okay, look at all of the specifications I have in here, right? And I want to say, start building all of this. It's going to go ahead and it's going to look into all of the features I want to see and it's going to start creating them, right? But because I know this is a lot of process, to take a lot of time to do this, I'm going to stop here for now. But of course, I intend to also schedule further sessions on this to talk about how we can play around and execute with the AI agents. So at this point in time, I would just be opening the floor for questions, contributions, suggestions on, yeah, what can we do with Copilot AI agents? The floor is now open for everyone.
Thank you. I have two questions for you.
Yeah.
So the first one is, it's very impressive, everything that you did there, but it still requires a lot of technical knowledge, right? So you have to understand about the databases, you give some instructions that it really shows that you have technical knowledge about the things that you're asking GitHub. So I wonder, can you also just give like a very generic specification and let the Copilot decide about the technology and everything else in a way that you just want at the end just open your browser and have like a page running it? Is that
True.
really possible?
So while I was preparing for this, I actually tried to play around with a lot of things. In fact, I tried to set up an Uber app, right? So it's possible actually. You could just say to Copilot and say, generate the prompt you want to see. You have an app in mind, right? You could actually ask it to generate the prompts for you, right? It will generate the prompts that you are going to use to develop that app. Mm-hmm. So now when you're asking it to generate the prompts, you virtually at that point don't have maybe a technical background. You just want to see something like this, right? And then you just tell Copilot, generate the prompts that I will need to deploy this application. It's going to do that, and then you start putting in the prompts one by one, and it executes on its own. So that's possible.
But still you have to have a bit of technical background. Because I think the whole point is you have to have a technical background. But it just helps you shorten that development time you would have spent if you had to do it on your own, maybe.
Yeah.
True.
But I think we're moving towards a direction that technical knowledge is not important anymore. And I believe that the next step will be like, hey, you don't care about code anymore. You just ask agent to do things, and they're going to just do it. Like, you don't have to worry about which version of Python, which libraries. You just say like, I want an application that have these functionalities, and the agent will just spin the application for you. Maybe you'll just open your browser and you're going to see it there.
True. I think we are really heading towards that, and I think that's the scariest version of it, right? Because you will then see a lot of people come building things they don't really have the technical knowledge about, but it works. Mm-hmm. It works. And some of the time at the end of the day, what you really want to see is something that works. Mm-hmm. But now the degree or the extent to which that application works then depends on your technical know-how. Because I still stand on the fact that you need to know what you're doing to put in some kind of features. Just like you spoke about it generating some code blocks that are kind of old, but they work, right? Now, if you specifically want to see a new line of code that you feel would implement what you want to see, then you have to instruct it. Use this version, use this type of code. You understand? And all of that comes from the knowledge you have. And that's why the baddest of all baddest that would later happen would be a scenario where you start training your agents to think like you.
It's not going to take longer.
It's not really going to take long. It's already in place. It's already in place. Your agent starts coding the way you think.
Maybe that they don't have to think the way you think.
Yes, it doesn't have to, but you know, there are styles people like every developer has their style. You understand? Because of the fact that it learns from you. It sees where you like to do specific things and how you like to do them. And you would notice that it starts giving those kind of suggestions that you like. And I think that is the awesome feature with this. Agents are here to stay. The other day, I was scrolling through Instagram, and there is now an AI-based service that would pick up your calls, create MCP servers for you that would reply to emails from your clients, a whole lot of things. It's all going to do that without you lifting a finger.
Thank you.
There's a question.
Oh, there's another question. Oh, sorry. Thank you. Yeah. Let me see.
Hey guys, I promise.
Hello, Carlos. Yeah.
Yeah,
Hello.
nice presentation, man. I
Thank you.
want just to give my 2 cents about all this Copilot thing and the vibe coding part, and maybe bring another discussion around it, because I don't know, because this is the thing with this foundation model, right? We don't know for sure or with certainty how biased and how where these things are being training, because although it brings a lot of good functionalities, helping us with code, but what about security? How this model all are being trained in which code has this code been validated first without being delivered to these models? That's why I'm a little bit skeptical when you start via coding and let the Copilot do everything for you, and that is a discussion that us as engineers need to have, and put some real thought about it, because nowadays everybody wants to create application. Yes, that's great, but what about in the future about the security or the user data, all of this? This is a huge concern because we have people with no technical background, okay, building MVPs, deploying them, and then we have bridges because no one's cared about the security part, and that's it. And with starting creating more cybersecurity issues on all these things. So that's why I'm pretty skeptical about it. But at the same time, I know that these companies that are developing these agent tools need to come on front and tell the people that, hey, you need to be careful and be aware of what we are doing, because if you are start vibe coding and at the end that comes to a huge security breach where you have all the users data on the dark web and exposing really critical information, that is a huge security breach. So I just this is my 2 cents about it, and maybe you can give me your thought on this. Thank you.
Thank you, Carlos. I mean, honestly, you've spoken the mind of a lot of people, of a lot of developers in the house as well, and I think this is why also features like this would create room and jobs for more technical people. So we would have scenarios where companies will now start looking at security. So somebody needs to fill the gap. That's where Blue Harvest comes in. We have security guys in here, right? That's where Blue Harvest comes in. So we would have scenarios where people want to develop services, not just AI-powered services, but where security concerns are being answered. That will need the technical skills of security personnel. So in this case, your knowledge comes into play. And then when you see some things happening in the application, or you see some kind of loopholes in the code, and you're like, okay, no, we can't have this. So you either remove that part of the code or you update that part of the code. So I feel they go hand in hand, and this is something we have to explore. Generally, in terms of AI coding in a responsible manner, right? In fact, there are lots of series I've seen on this where people are talking about how do you build these applications with AI, making use of security conscious tools. So this is a field I feel that will be explored, and we all have a part to play in this. Thank you so much for that, Carlos. Any other questions?
Do you know if Microsoft has any plans to make these LLMs available for private deployment? So in this case, you don't have to send all your code, your business logic to their servers.
Yeah.
And I think this could also enable the adoption for companies like private banks or the financial services where these kind of requirements are be exposed, right?
Yes, I think I'm not sure. I haven't done that research yet, but I think there are, because even in popular AI platforms like ChatGPT, there are scenarios where you could lock out, I don't want my codes or my prompts to go outside of this environment. So I think that is currently in place, right? But I need to probably check and confirm to you.
And just to an add-on I saw the Microsoft AI tour on Amsterdam. They are talking about something about governance, when they are building things that where everything stays within
Europe.
within Europe, and as well within the company domain. I need to check my transcript of that to see have much information about it, but I'm pretty sure they mentioned something about the government part and the security part related to private data and stuff like that.
I think I did see some. I confirmed that as well. I don't know whether it was something regarding sovereign cloud for Europeans, right? Something that is going to just be within this region, right? And then you could probably restrict it also to organizations. Yes, I think I did say that. Yes. So, I mean, they are already thinking in line of these thoughts. And because I think if you also take a look in terms of adoption of these changes, I think Europe is one of their very large market, one of the largest markets they have, right? So I think they are also considering this and how they can put all of these features in place for people. Awesome. Thank you very much for that, Dennis. Also to Carlos. Yeah. I know we are very much past the time, so I would like to just round up the session for now. And I mean, I want to use this opportunity to let everyone know, please, let's explore these tools. Let's start talking about these tools. Let's start documenting them, right? And of course, if you're in a scenario where you're looking for, I would say, subscriptions regarding this, if for any chance you are documenting your findings, you could actually take part in the MVP program that allows you to gain access to free subscriptions to play around with these things. So, in as much as you're documenting, you're doing your researches, please take advantage of the, will I say, free offers Microsoft have for things like this. At this point in time, I'll say thank you all that came around for this session. I am deeply grateful that you guys provided the audience. And yeah, to more of AI agents, I would say. All right. Thank you, everyone. We round up the session here. Yeah.